Your emergency fund isn't about preparing for disaster. It's about making sure life's detours don't turn into derailments. Hi, I'm Allie Jane Ayers, and I write the Substack Money Changes Everything. How much cash do you actually need? How to come up with a plan that sets you up to handle the inevitable curveballs of life without panicking. Key takeaways. The right amount of cash to keep on hand depends on your income stability, responsibilities, and personal risk tolerance. A good starting point is 3 months of actual living expenses, then adjust based on your specific circumstances. A solid cash reserve gives you breathing room to make thoughtful decisions when life doesn't go as planned. The best way to determine the exact right amount of cash you should have liquid is to consult your birth chart. Your rising sign will determine which high-yield savings account to use. I'm just kidding. Please don't do that. Although I have, on 2 separate occasions, had clients tell me they couldn't invest in the market because Mercury was in retrograde. Out of curiosity, and with ChatGPT's help, I ran a quick analysis of Mercury retrograde periods against the returns of the total stock market ETF, VTI. While not perfect, VTI is a good proxy since it represents all the listed companies on the US stock market. I'm pleased to report that there is no meaningful correlation between the stock market and this astrological event. VTI performance during Mercury retrograde. I analyzed VTI's performance against Mercury retrograde periods from 2020 to 2023. Overall, VTI's performance during Mercury retrograde periods has been mixed, with no consistent pattern of decline or growth. I'm just being cheeky, but to be clear, I empathize with this notion of, I have a bad feeling about something. People gravitate towards what they know and what they are comfortable with, and for many people, astrology is what they're comfortable with. If you're trying to invest for the first time and Mercury's retrograde feels unsettling, that's a valid emotional roadblock. Financial decisions need confidence, not cosmic anxiety. But I digress. We are here to talk about cash and how to determine how much you need. This has absolutely nothing to do with your star sign. The short answer, it depends. But I'll give you more than that. My favorite way to teach financial planning is through real-life factual patterns that can help you decide what applies to you. If you own your home, you may need more cash on hand to replace your water heater when it inevitably fails, usually without warning and always at the worst time. If you live in a 2-income household, you likely need less cash because you have greater income stability. So how much cash do you actually need? While you should definitely not base this on your star sign, it's also not an exact formula. A common rule of thumb is to have 3 months of living expenses saved in cash. That gives you breathing room for the unexpected. But numbers alone don't always tell the whole story. Risk tolerance matters too. Personally, I'm comfortable with more uncertainty than my husband is, so we've disagreed about how much cash to keep on hand. I ultimately conceded because he didn't feel safe until we hit a certain number. If you want a straightforward formula, start with 3 times your actual monthly spending, not what you think you spend. That includes housing, insurance, debt payments, your grocery runs, everything. Most people underestimate their monthly expenses. I know that I do. If you're not sure, now is a great time to take a closer look at how expensive you are. You may hear different terms for this pile of money: emergency fund, FU fund, oh shit fund, but the principle is the same. This is a dedicated pool of cash sitting in a high-yield savings account ready to cover unexpected costs, layoffs, car repairs, medical bills, even sudden opportunities. It turns a crisis into an inconvenience. Accidents become blips instead of life ruiners. So what do I mean by cash? Not literal paper bills, though you can keep some of those too, if you want, in a fireproof safe in your closet. What I mean is money held in a bank account that's safe and accessible at a moment's notice. Not invested, not in a CD, not tied up in crypto, just cash. What impacts your emergency fund number? Let's build from the basic 3-month recommendation baseline and adjust based on your circumstances. Circumstances that should increase your emergency fund. You are self-employed. Congratulations, you're a business owner. Add 3 more months. If your income depends on your health, availability, or client demand, you need a bigger cushion. You work in a highly specialized or unstable industry. If it would take longer than 3 months to find another job due to your role in or the economy, increase your fund by the time it would take you to replace your income. I.e., if it will take you a year to find a new job, you need a 12-month emergency fund. This includes people in senior leadership, niche roles, or industries prone to layoffs. Want an example? The 2023 writer's strike officially lasted for 5 months, but the industry impact still remains, and people are still living off their emergency funds years later. You're the sole earner in your household. One-income households have more pressure riding on a single job. Consider adding 1 or 2 months of expenses. You have variable or seasonal income. If your cash flow is inconsistent, like so many of us, if you're a real estate agent, a freelancer, an artist, extra savings can help smooth out the dry months. You support extended family or others financially. More dependence means more responsibility. If your financial choices impact other people's well-being, it's wise to plan for more. Circumstances, though rare, that should decrease your emergency fund. You have credit card debt. Based on our savings order of operations, you should pay credit card debt off first before you start saving money as cash to have on hand. And that's because credit card debt is eating into your future. It may not be realistic for you to save 3 months of living expenses if you don't already have it. So focus on paying down that debt first. It may be more prudent to build a smaller buffer, say 1 month of expenses, and use the rest to pay down credit card debt. That debt costs you more over time than the interest you might be earning in savings. You have reliable financial support. If you can count on family to help in an emergency, you might feel comfortable with less cash on hand. Just make sure that support is truly available, not hypothetical. You have access to low-cost credit. While I wouldn't recommend relying on this long-term, a solid low-cost credit line, such as a home equity line of credit, also known as a HELOC, can serve as a temporary fallback, especially if paired with a modest cash reserve. Here are 2 case studies based on my methodology. Case study 1. Ava, the single freelancer. Ava is a 35-year-old graphic designer who works for herself. She lives alone in a rented apartment in a medium-cost city. Maybe it's Chicago. Her income fluctuates based on client work, and she covers her own health insurance. Her monthly expenses average around $4,000. Because she's self-employed, lives alone, and doesn't have a safety net, she opts for 6 months of cash, $4,000 times 6, $24,000 in a high-yield savings account. She used to think that was excessive until she had a dry quarter and her car needed a major repair the same week. Now she sleeps better knowing she can weather the storms without going into debt. Case study 2. Priya and Daniel, dual income with family pressures. Priya and Daniel are in their early 40s and live in the suburbs of Philadelphia with their 2 school-aged children. Priya is the chief marketing officer for a niche industrial biotech company focused on enzymatic wastewater solutions, a highly specialized sector. Made that one up, didn't I? If she were to lose her job, her only realistic options would be to work for one of 2 competitors, both of which are located outside of the state, away from her family. Daniel works in local government with a stable salary and solid benefits, but his role alone couldn't cover all their living expenses. You see where I'm going with this? We have 2 competing jobs, but if we lose one of them, we are going to lose the other one as well. On top of their career considerations, they're also supporting Priya's mother, who lives with them and has ongoing health issues. Her care requires both time and out-of-pocket expenses that aren't fully covered by insurance. Their monthly household spending averages around $8,000. Given the combination of high fixed costs, career vulnerability, caregiver responsibilities, and 2 dependents, they decide to build a 9-month emergency fund to give themselves ample breathing room. $8,000 times 9 gives us $72,000. That figure might feel high, but for them, it's not just about job loss, it's about continuity. If Priya were laid off and couldn't find a local replacement quickly, they'd need time to decide whether to relocate, change industries, or adjust their caregiving setup. The larger cash reserve gives them flexibility without forcing a rushed or reactive decision. A note for business owners. If you run your own business, your personal emergency fund is only part of the equation. Your business needs its own dedicated cash reserve. Many otherwise viable businesses fail, not because the idea was bad or demand dried up, but because they simply ran out of cash, especially when it came time to make payroll. The general recommendation is to keep at least 3 to 6 months of operating expenses in reserve, depending on your industry and how variable your revenue is. For payroll specifically, conservative guidance from the U.S. Small Business Association, the SBA, suggests keeping 1 to 2 months of payroll costs in cash at all times, separate from your operating budget. By the way, the SBA is also very good at giving out loans. If you are in a cash crunch, think about asking them for a little bit of a float. In my experience as a business owner with a biweekly payroll that could buy a house in many lovely places, having a cash cushion is essential. Business owners make bad decisions, and so do regular people, when they are put in a place of fear. So for me personally, having at least 6 months of core expenses like payroll and software costs is essential. In addition to a cash buffer, it's wise to explore a business line of credit before you actually need it. Think of it like an umbrella. It's annoying and you hope you don't need it, but it will really save you if you do need it. Having access to a revolving credit line can help you weather short-term cash flow gaps without derailing your operations or risking your personal finances. Lines of credit can also smooth out seasonal dips or slow client payments without having to dip into your emergency fund. Your business shouldn't fail because one vendor is 30 days late on a payment. You typically pay a small fee of a few $100s to continue to access this line of credit. I hope we never have to use ours, but knowing it's there helps me sleep a lot better at night. Final thoughts. Cash is confidence. Holding cash can feel inefficient. It earns less than the market, and it just sits there. But that's the point. Cash is the only asset class that doesn't require justification for why you're holding it. It's security. It's not meant to grow. It's just meant to sit there. It lets you say no to something without panicking, wait without rushing, and make decisions from a place of strength and relative stability. You're not aiming for a return on investment. You're aiming for a return on peace of mind. There's no single formula that works for everyone when it comes to how much cash to keep on hand. The right number depends on your income stability, your responsibilities, your risk tolerance, and yes, sometimes even your gut. What matters most is that you've thought about it, made a plan, and set yourself up to handle the inevitable curveballs of life without going into panic mode. Cash doesn't solve everything, but it creates space to breathe, to think, to regroup, and make better decisions. It buys time, it preserves your dignity. It helps you protect your future, whether you're navigating a layoff, covering a medical bill, or just trying to make payroll without flinching. If you're new to this, start simple. 1 month of expenses is better than nothing. Build towards 3. Adjust based on your life. And if you're running a business, give it its own safety net. The peace of mind that comes from knowing you're covered, personally and professionally, is one of the most powerful forms of financial freedom there is. Cash isn't boring. It's a safety valve. And in a world that can feel unpredictable, that kind of stability is priceless. Here's my parting shot. In the end, your emergency fund isn't about preparing for disaster. It's about making sure life's detours don't turn into derailments.